The global elites plan more control with your money. Now, as old as civilization itself, governments and world leaders have wanted to find ways to control the people. Throughout history, the government gets too much control and the people revolt, and then the cycle starts all over again. Now, one of the best ways to control the people is with their money. In 1744, Mayer Rothschild infamously said, quote, "Give me control of a nation's money and I care not who makes the laws," end quote. So basically, whoever holds the purse strings is the boss. And now, new technology is making it easier than ever to control people, and the war on cash, which will be the greatest form of control we've ever seen, has been well underway for some time. Now, we already know that China is the first one to release their own central bank digital currency. I've talked about this many times before, and now, just this week, announcements came out about the US central bank's digital currency and the pilot tests that they are running. Now, in this video, I'm gonna cover what you need to know about these pilot tests, what this means for the US dollar, what the timeframes are of this, and so much more. So let's go. All right, now real quick before we jump in, if you're new to the channel, my name is Mark Moss, and I make these videos because I want to change the way you think about money, because almost everything that you've learned is wrong. And if you can learn to see and think about these things differently, then you can have more freedom, more options for your life, for your family, and your future. So if you like these subjects and you want to help me get them out to more people so we can open up this world, free people, then just take one quick second, do me a favor, click on that like button so the algorithm sends it out to more people. Of course, if you're not subscribed, hit that subscribe button and the bell notification so you're notified every time I put new videos out. All right, now let's go ahead and jump into this. All right, so getting going on this today, we are talking about the war for your money. We're talking about the war on cash. Of course, like I said, I've talked about this many times before, but there's been recent developments that just came out this week that are changing things, changing the timelines, and you need to know. Now, to go back a little bit in time, I'm not gonna go super deep into history on you today, but you just need to know that the war on cash has been happening for a really long time, all right? We've seen countries have been trying to limit cash transactions, limiting the amount that you're able to use. We're seeing pretty much every country has a limit of how much cash transactions you can do. In the United States, for example, you cannot do a transaction with over $10,000 in cash without reporting that. In other countries throughout Europe, some of them have as low as like $1,000 of cash transactions that are able to be done. And of course, this is all being done for control, which we're going to get into in a little bit. But I want to give one example here. I've used this before. If you watch my videos, you might have seen it. But a lot of times people think that, well, this would never work in a country that's heavily reliant on cash, right? Maybe it works in the United States because everyone uses digital money, you know, credit, debit cards, whatever. But some countries, third world countries, other countries of the world use all cash. Okay, so let's take a look at that. So India is a perfect example of this. India is one of the largest countries and it's one of the most cash-heavy, cash-dependent countries. And in 2016, they went and made the 500 and 1,000 rupee notes basically made illegal overnight. All right, now, to kind of show you what happened here, we can see here that India scraps the 500 and 1,000 rupee banknotes, as I said, overnight. Now, those are not big bills. Those are, pretty small denominated bills. But let's just take a look at how this happened. And what happened is, basically, like I said, overnight, the Prime Minister suddenly announced, hey, guess what? Your money's illegal, right? Suddenly announced that they're gonna end the use of these banknotes, about $7.50 and about $15 US. That was the value. So $7 and $15 value, not a lot of money. Now, they did say they're gonna replace it with another note, okay? But that's not the key piece here. All right, the key piece is that he ordered the country's banks shuttered. So if you've been following along with my videos, you know that when gold was made illegal, they did the exact same thing. The banks went onto a holiday, shut the banks down, all right? The banks were shuttered, all right? And then they said that they could exchange the money at the banks through December 30th. Now you notice this is on November 12th, so that gave them about 30 days to get that money into the bank and exchange that for the new notes, all right? Well, it sounds simple enough. They're not really banning cash. Well, kind of they are. The vast majority of monetary transactions among Indian citizens involves cash. So everyone had to go and deposit their cash, exchange their cash. The catch was they had to prove, where did they get the cash? Where did it come from? Did they pay taxes on it? If they weren't able to prove any of this, then there was severe consequences, including many Indians losing all their money. Now, fast forwarding back to where we're at, the spark that's really ignited this war on cash that we're seeing right now. Of course, I think is obviously coming from technology. Bitcoin started this trend, right? We have digital money. Everybody's trying to move to this digital money. Of course, we're in a digital age, right? We need a digital money. Other cryptocurrencies, of course, and then we have the US dollar-backed stable coins. And so that was really the spark that got things going, got everybody started thinking about digital money. But then we got this spark, which is Facebook Libra. And they came and just kicked it into high gear because they came out with a new form of money where they wanted to take all the fiat monies, basically what the IMF does with their SDR basket, and use that as a form of money. So it was a basket of currencies. And of course, Facebook Libra got shut down. They're trying to revive that right now. I'm not getting into that. But they basically got shut down, but that was really the spark that really got things going. And now at this point, we can see that about 80% of banks, so we can see here, sorry, I forgot to bring this up, but the Zuck Buck, as it's kind of affectionately being called. But what happened is, like I said, it really kicked things into gear. And now the BIS, the Bank of International Settlements, is kind of the central bank of all central banks. They're basically saying that 80% of banks are actually working on a new central bank digital currency. All right, so that's kind of setting the stage a little bit. You can start to see kind of where that's going. But really, no surprise, China was the first one to the punch, right? They are, they're an authoritarian state. They're a top-down, centrally planned state. They've made use of all the technologies they can do to control the people, including social credit scores and surveillance systems everywhere and things like that. So it's not that big of a surprise that they were the first one to roll out the brand new tool that can be used for censorship and control. All right, now let's go through a little bit of timeline and then we'll get to the United States. So they released this test here, $1.5 million central bank digital currency test. Again, if you've been following my channel, you know this. Back in October of 2020, they started working on it earlier, obviously. I'm not gonna go through that history, but they released it to the wild, we'll say in October of 2020, and they did it in kind of a fashion where they enticed people to do it. So hey, check it out. If you go download this app, and take our central bank digital currency so we can spy on you and control you, we're gonna give you free money. Of course, who wouldn't download that app and take that? Now, since October 2020, they've continued to release it to bigger and bigger and bigger scales. We've seen that, but now the timeline, there's timelines I told you I was gonna bring to you. They are planning a full-scale launch by the Olympics of next year. So what a better way to do this. If you were like a James Bond villain or a James Bond movie writer, you would kind of plan this, right? Bring the whole world, bring all the world leaders together and then release whatever it is that you want, right? So of course we can see Nikki Asia reports that China aims to launch it by 2022 by the Winter Olympics. Bring the whole world to China and get everybody using the digital yuan at the same time. You couldn't write the script any better. So that is the time frame that we're looking at. By next year, expect a large part of the world to be using this digital yuan. So that's kind of the timeline. Now, why? Well, what we're seeing is, of course, this has always been a power struggle, right? It's a power struggle over money. And what China really wants is they want to get some of the power back that the United States holds. So the United States has the reserve currency of the world, and because it's the reserve currency of the world, which runs payments through what's known as the SWIFT network. If you've ever sent a wire transfer, you know what SWIFT is. And so what the United States is able to do is weaponize the dollar. So hey, if the United States doesn't like the policy or something that your country has done, sanctions. Right? Sanctions on you, and you're cut out of the financial system. And so the digital yuan is going to give China new tools to strike back. This is dated just recently. So this allows them to bypass the weaponization of the US dollar, bypass that SWIFT system. All right, now what's really kicked this thing into high gear is this right here. We're gonna talk about this. Now, a couple things have happened to get the United States really, really moving on this. Now, first of all, a little bit of history. Now, you might have remembered if you've been watching my videos that they tried to slip some of this through in the first round of stimmy that we saw after the first, after the pandemic broke out last year. And we can see that the Fed issued a digital dollar, and it nearly, quote, nearly made it into the US Congress $2 trillion stimulus bill. So whenever these stimulus bills come out, they stuff a lot of stuff in there. These things get so thick that nobody even takes the time to read it. And so it's like their chance, like, wait, the American people want some money, so let's go ahead and rush it out there, and let's just go ahead and just pass a bunch of other stuff. And so while they're trying to get stimmy out, they talked about this in that, but it didn't make it through. However, you know what they say, if it doesn't work at first, try again. And so of course they did. Digital dollar is now reintroduced in STIMI number 2, trying to get it back out again. All right, so they're trying to get this out into the public in the United States. However, the head of the central bank, Jerome Powell, he's come out many times, this is October 19, 2020, and he says that what's more important for the US to get the digital currency right, not to be first. So we don't need to be first, right? We're the United States. We have the US dollar. We're the reserve currency of the world. We don't have to lead. We're so big, we can let other people go out and innovate, and we'll just follow the line. So he said here, quote, to get it right. What's more important, to quote, is to get it right rather than being first. So go ahead and just let China be first, I guess. Let it beat us to the punch. However, once China has come out and released all the stuff that I just said, where their goal is to take down the dollar supremacy using the SWIFT system and to have a good majority of the world using it by next year, by the Winter Olympics, that all of a sudden didn't sit right. And now we can see all of a sudden, this is in the last couple weeks, the Biden administration has come out and sees that it's now a threat. There is now a threat from China's digital yuan. Yeah, no kidding, right? They basically said, I covered this in a separate video, they put out a video basically saying their goal was to get rid of the SWIFT system, take away the United States dollar weapon that they have. Now, when we look at the US central bank and their digital currency pilots, basically, again, they're motivated now, and what they want to do is they want to roll out 5 digital dollar pilots. Now, the US dollar is the reserve currency of the world, so they can't just switch the whole thing over without testing. Of course, no reason to do that, no way they do that. Just like I kind of showed you how China has been working on it for years. They rolled it out in October of last year, and they've been continuing to gradually roll that out with a plan of full-scale launch next year. The United States wants to do 5 digital dollar pilots over the next 12 months. Now, it's done by a nonprofit group called the Digital Dollar Project, and I'm going to explain to you what that means because it's a lot different than what China's doing. And then also they want to test, why is there 5 different pilot tests? Because they want to test a bunch of different potential uses. They want to test it in different areas, rural areas, city areas, high income, low income. They want to test these, but they also want to test a bunch of features. And that's part of the scary part we're going to jump into. And they want to recreate, like I said, similar tests that China did, which, as I said, right, they rolled it out kind of slowly over time. Now, the Digital Dollar Project is a not government group. It's a combination of Accenture and the Digital Dollar Foundation. Now, you may not, maybe you recognize this name, maybe you don't know who it is. I believe it was previously was Arthur Anderson, which was famous, or I should say infamous, from Enron. So if any of you guys are old enough to remember the Enron scandal that basically brought down the stock market, well, yeah, these guys, they were behind it. So nice to have some trustworthy people behind that. And then we have the Digital Dollar Foundation. Who's that? Well, it's headed by the former chair of the CFTC, the Commodity Futures Exchange, and that's Chris Giancarlo. Now, he is no stranger to the digital asset world. They were the first ones to bring it on in the United States. He's been pushing for it, and so they're kind of the head. But as I was kind of saying earlier, it's private. It's a private company. It's not the banks. This is not the government. This is not the Federal Reserve. It's private companies, Accenture and the foundation. And the reason why is because in the United States, things are done a little bit differently in China. If any of my viewers, which I know there are plenty that are fans of the book, The Creature from Jekyll Island, you know that the Federal Reserve is not really the government. It's kind of like a semi-quasi-private bank, kind of working with the government. And then all the banks down below, of course, are private institutions. They're not government, right? And so because of that, it makes sense that this is also a private group that's doing this, which is way different than what we see in China. China is an authoritarian, top-down, centrally planned government. It's a communist country, the CCP, the Communist China, or the China Communist Party. And so it's just a lot different. And so here in the United States, this is done by private companies. Now, a couple things to look at. This is from the Accenture website. And again, I said this just came out a couple days ago. The Digital Dollar Project will launch, as I said, 5 pilot programs over the next 12 months. US Central Bank Digital Currency, or what we call a CBDC, Central Bank Digital Currency, or what they're calling it, a digital dollar. Now let's dig into this and see what these pilots are going to have. All right, because this is where it starts getting maybe scary. So the features. So as I've talked about before, these central bank digital currencies are programmable money. They're behavioral money. So what does that mean? Well, they're programmable. So that means that I can program this money to do whatever I want it to do. So, for example, in China, they added expiration dates. So if you don't use the money by this date, it comes back to us. So when in the United States, when they sent out the stimmy back last year, they wanted that to stimulate the economy. They wanted people to take that money and go spend it. Well, a lot of people saved it. They saved it, or they put it into Robinhood and became options traders, and that is not what the government wanted. And so what they could do, programmable, is say, hey, just like China, if you don't use it by this certain date, it comes back to us, or you can only use it at these retailers, only Walmart and only Walmart maybe, or Amazon are approved vendors. Nowhere else you can spend it, for example. Right now, like I said, China did this. They added those expiration dates, and per the report from the Digital Dollar Group, they said that the U.S. digital dollar will have that, plus it's gonna have even more things. So let's take a look at that. It's going to allow the central bank to deposit this currency, this digital dollar, to any account. Now, at first, you maybe don't understand the impact of that, but what it can allow them to do is many things, one of which being targeted inflation. So let's say, for example, they could say, hey, this state needs more inflation, so we're just gonna give money to the state. It could be this region, it could be this town, or whatever. It could also be this identity group. We've heard lots of talk about reparations happening, so maybe it just goes for reparations. Maybe it goes to minority groups or whatever it may be. And so they can really program it, and they can use it to target behavior and really target inflation in different groups. For example, they say, hey, Mark, you're saving way too much money, and so we're gonna hit you with a -5% interest rate. Oh, you're still not spending enough. Okay, now it's -10. Or they could say, hey, you're not saving enough, so we're gonna give you a positive 5% rate. Or you're not saving enough, we'll give you a positive 10. So you can start to see how this can be used. Now, they've told us some of this stuff, and it's pretty interesting, so let's go ahead and take a look at that. Directly off their website from the Digital Dollar Project, we can see a couple things about this proposed pilot program that I wanna point out. So one, they want to improve financial inclusion. Remember that word, we're gonna dig into that, all right? That's a key point. Improve financial inclusion, that's what they wanna do. That's the first thing they said. Increase competitiveness, of course, we're being outcompeted by China, we need to improve that. Maintain security standards, right? That goes without saying. They wanna develop a widely adopted United States CBDC, of course, right? They want it to be balanced towards individual privacy rights with necessary compliance and regulatory policies. All right, so they want it to be balanced, right? Yeah, we want you to have a little bit of privacy, sure, but it needs to be balanced so we have compliance and regulatory policies. It needs to be built for future flexibility. Well, I kind of like my dollar to be $1 in the future and worth $1 in the future. I don't really want to be that flexible. They want to be accessible to all persons in the United States. Remember this financial inclusion piece, we're gonna get back to that. And they want to balance, again, the key word balance, the right to privacy. So yeah, we want you to have a little bit of privacy, that's important, but ensuring appropriate regulatory protections in place, such as AML, anti-money laundering, and KYC, know your customer. We're gonna talk about that, all right? And don't forget this one, government surveillance. Government surveillance, and so we're gonna talk about the inclusion, AML, KYC, and the surveillance. Just one more thing, I wanna show you this. So typically what marketing companies do, or when you're doing a pilot, is you pull out like an avatar. So here is Jane, is a 45-year-old woman. She has a high school degree, but she lives in a rural American town, all right? Now, she does not have a bank due to the inconvenience of having to visit a distant bank branch. So she doesn't have any branches nearby her. She has to visit a distant one. Now, she doesn't mind not having a bank account, but has difficulty making online transactions because she doesn't have a bank account, right? So she does have a smartphone though, right? She does have a smartphone, but she doesn't have a broadband internet connection. Now, I don't know why Jane doesn't just use her phone as a hotspot for her laptop. That's what I do quite frequently. I wish she doesn't do that. Now, the solution that they propose is that in a world with CBDC, Jane would have the ability to access bank digital wallet services through her smartphone. Kind of like Venmo or PayPal or my online bank that I do through my smartphone, I guess. However, as a first step, Jane would have to verify her identity credentials by going to a local regulated entity. But remember, she doesn't have any banks nearby her. That was the whole problem. And to complete the necessary AML KYC reviews. All right, that's what we're gonna talk about. Let's take a look at what that is. All right, so let's talk about the myth of inclusion. Now, we hear all these buzzwords today. The Federal Reserve now, supposedly, in addition to keeping the economy stable and keeping people fully employed, now they want to target racial, gender, income inequality. And so all this talk about equality. And now they're talking about inclusion. We saw that buzzword a couple times. Well, in the United States, it's estimated somewhere between 20 to 25% of the United States Americans are either unbanked or underbanked, as we can see in this chart right here. Some estimates have it even higher. As you can see in the CNBC report, they say up to 25% of US households are underbanked. But that's just in the United States, where there's a good infrastructure. In the world, there's a little over 7 billion, maybe almost 8 billion adults in the world today, and 2 billion of those adults don't have access to banking. They have no access to the financial system. Now, how can you have equality? How can you talk about inclusion when those 2 billion adults have no access to the financial system? Now, why don't they have access to the financial system? Remember Jane? She has a smartphone. She can use it as a hotspot for a computer. The reason why is because she has to get permission. She has to pass AML and KYC. People around the world, 2 billion adults around the world, are not given permission to join. They don't have the proper documentation. They don't have the proper ID. They're not in the correct countries. The countries they're in don't allow them to join the financial system. So the problem with this inclusion they're trying to solve is not having a central bank digital currency. The problem why these people don't have access is because they're not given permission. Now, you've probably heard my story. I moved from California to Puerto Rico several months ago. I'm a known person. I have long history of banking. I'm what's known as a high value customer, and it took me over 26 days to get a bank account opened here because I had to fill out every single form, every single questionnaire. What was the account used for? How much transactions will be? What's my cash balance? All these questions, all this approval. 26 days for me to get a bank account open because I needed permission. All right, and that is the problem that we're having, not having a central bank digital currency. So really what this is it's a battle over money. All right, like I said, they're pushing equality, they're preaching equality, but what we need is equality of an opportunity. Everybody should have the opportunity to join the financial system. All right, 2 billion adults in the world don't have that opportunity. There's no equality there, and giving them a central bank digital currency is not going to help because they're in a country that they're not allowed to join the financial system, or they don't have the proper documentation. Because if people don't have access to the financial system, if they don't have access to send and receive money, they don't have a chance. They don't have a chance to get out of poverty, whether you're in the United States or any other country of the world. You don't have that. And so what we really need here, this is the big game changer, is permissionless money. Everybody needs to have the ability to transact, and we need it to be done without permission. It shouldn't be up to any one regulatory body to give permission to do this, all right? Now, of course, what kind of permissionless money are we talking about? Of course, if you watch my channel, you already know my favorite is Bitcoin. Bitcoin, anybody can download a wallet, anybody in the world, right now. While you're watching this video, you could download a wallet and you could send, receive, and store money. You could be your own bank right now. There's no permission required. It's borderless. It works anywhere in the world. It's permissionless anywhere in the world. CBDCs are not the solution because they still require the same permission. Now, how do CBDCs balance out with this? Well, in my opinion, I believe that CBDCs will only push adoption back. And that's because right now there's still a lot of people, maybe you watching this as a skeptic, saying, well, I don't trust that digital money. I want real hard things. And that's okay. This is a generational thing, and it's going to take time to kind of get there. Now, of course, we have people using PayPal and Venmo and debit cards and stuff like that, but some people still feel like they don't like the digital thing. And so by using central banks' digital dollars, it's going to increase that, right? So all of a sudden, well, shoot, I guess if I can do it with the Federal Reserve and my digital dollars, then I could do it with Bitcoin. So it's going to increase adoption, it's going to increase awareness, it's going to allow people to kind of start to see it, touch it, feel it, well, not touch it, but use it. And I believe that's going to push back to Bitcoin adoption. So that's the game changer here. The battle over money is not, the battle of money is they want to control us with more regulations, more permissions, and rolling us into a central bank digital currency, whether it's China or the United States, only gives them more of that control. What we really need is permissionless money, that anybody has the ability to join the financial system. Now, you're hearing it first right here for the first time, and I don't know why I'm saying this, but I am launching a nonprofit where we are going to tackle this problem, and we are going to bank the unbanked all around the world. We're going to take this to the world and we are going to bring them into the financial system. It's going to be a massive movement. We have some really, really big stretch goals. And so anyway, I'm going to put a link down below. If you're interested in keeping up with what we're going to do, maybe be a part of it. It's a nonprofit. We could use as much help as we can to really free the world from this and bring permissionless, borderless money to the world. You can just drop your email and we'll keep you up to date on what's going on. Again, this is not a sales thing. There's no money. It's a nonprofit. But I want to make an impact and I want you to come with me. All right, now, what do you think about this? Am I an idiot? Do I have it all wrong? Or does this make sense? Leave me a comment down below. Leave me a question. If you have one, I'd love to answer your questions. Of course, as always, give me a thumbs up on this video if you like it. If you don't like the video, that's okay. Give me a thumbs down. But tell me why. Leave me a comment and let me know why. And that's what I got for you today. All right, to your success. I'm out.